Released on September 29, 1999, Tony Hawk's Pro Skater is a game where players take control of one of many skaters, do all kinds of tricks in a set environment. Players can complete the goals, beat a high score, or just screw around the sandbox. Pro Skater had a big impact on the gaming industry, with many gamers fascinated by the fun arcade gameplay, skating physics, and awesome soundtrack. Without further ado, let's give the first Pro Skater a deeper look. The main gameplay sees players running around a small place and performing tricks to gain points or achieve other goals. Let's start with the main mode, the story mode. There are 6 maps where players are given 2 minutes in order to complete 5 goals, which include reaching 2 different high scores, collecting or hitting a certain object, picking up the skate letters, and getting the secret tape. Once players beat enough goals, they're allowed to go on to the next level. Their selected skater also has their stats increased, and they will also obtain more decks as the player goes through the story. If the player doesn't get enough tapes to advance, they'll get a small statement that teases the next level, along with how many more goals they need to achieve. There's also 3 competition levels, where players have to reach a high enough score in under a minute, so they can impress the judges. If the player gets 3rd place or higher, they'll move on to the next skate area. The player hasn't beaten the story until they've done all goals for one skater, and get gold for all the competition levels. Once they've done that, they'll get some kind of unlockable, along with an FMV of their selected skater performing some sick tricks. Then players move on to the next skater to do the same thing. Anyways, once players get into a level, they can do flip or grab tricks while in the air, grind on surfaces, find gaps, and ollie, or jump, in order to score points. The player can change the trick they do by holding the D-pad in a certain direction and pressing one of the action buttons. Players can spin while doing tricks in the air in order to increase their score, but they have to land correctly or else they'll get nothing. The player can wall ride to get some air too. There's also special tricks that can be performed by pressing a certain button combination, and they give more points than normal. Combos happen when players perform multiple tricks before hitting the ground, granted the player doesn't fail. And combos multiply the total value of the tricks depending on how many were performed. Variety is the key to getting as much points as possible. Additionally, there's score points scattered throughout the match that can be picked up. One last thing, the turning on the skateboard can be adjusted to how much they want the skater to move whenever they turn. Overall, the gameplay to the first Pro Skater is pretty fun. The goals are simple, but keep the player going, and even free skate, mindlessly roaming the levels and doing tricks is quite satisfying. Players can also partake in multiplayer, where they can grab someone else and battle each other in 3 different game modes. In Graffiti, players go around the map and do tricks in order to tag their territory. If the player wants to take the other's territory, they must obtain a higher score than the combo the other player got for that claimed piece. Trick Attack is where players roam around a level and try to achieve the highest score. And last but not least is Horse, where players take turns performing a combo or a trick, and whoever has the lowest score gets a letter in the word horse, and whoever spells out the word loses. The player can also change the chosen word, it doesn't always have to be horse. They're fun, great for some competition, and creative. Neversaw could have just put a get the highest score mode in and called it a day, but they wanted to give the player something to write home about. Otherwise, that's about it for the gameplay section for this game. The graphics are pretty standard for a game released in 1999. The levels don't use too much fog, due to the fact most take place in small spaces, so the console doesn't have to load in too much textures at one time. Speaking of the levels, they all take place in some kind of urban setting, and for good reason. The developers wanted to make sure the landscape felt natural and realistic, but also have enough things for players to use as quarter pipes, and enough items for players to grind on. Everything also needed to feel connected, that way players can also make combos last as long as possible, and create plenty of gaps. Players are given 3 types of maps: small skate arenas, open areas, and end goal levels. The skate arenas make the player get creative in using the landscape. so they can get as much points as possible with only so much room to use. The open areas really let the player go wild with their style and enjoy the freedom to skate. End goal levels have a point A and a point B, but players must do everything in between, as trying to backtrack can be rather difficult. They work because they all offer their own kind of fun and uniqueness to keep players engaged. Back to the art style, graffiti is a common occurrence, along with company logos that represent the rad attitude of the skaters. There are screens in some of the levels that play music videos from the bands present in the soundtrack, or skate videos. Speaking of the skate videos, there's a few the player can earn by beating the career multiple times. They range from the typical cool tricks these professionals pull on a daily basis, to videos where they screw up to show even the best aren't perfect. While on the topic of skaters, let's talk about their animations. They're quite smooth for a game released in 1999. The developers used motion capture to really demonstrate the flexibility of skaters whenever they perform tricks. The bail animations are a bit clunky though, I will say. Anyways, onto the menus. The menus are quite good for a PS1 game. They're smooth, informative, and get the player where they need to be. At the skater select screen, there's a 3D model of said skater, along with their stats, their selected skateboard, and how many tapes and competition medals they've earned. Speaking of the skaters, there's a good variety of them in terms of what kind of tricks they specialize in and what part of the world they're from. Anyways, the level select shows a map of the US and where the levels take place, along with a screenshot of the map in question. In career mode, players are shown the goals they have to perform in order to get tapes, and a hint as to where the hidden tape is. While still in the UI, the in-game information is quite useful too. The trick the player just performed will appear on the bottom, along with how much that trick is worth. If the player does multiple tricks, it'll add everything up and even show how big the multiplier is. And last but not least, the tricks are colored gray, the gaps are colored blue, and the special tricks are yellow to help players understand their combos. The game also scolds or taunts the player if they go somewhere they're not supposed to. And that wraps things up for the visuals. It's impossible to mention any of the Tony Hawk games without bringing up their god tier soundtracks. While the first game only has 10 tracks, they're so good, they really fit with the gameplay and punk aesthetic of everything. After all, who could forget Superman by Goldfinger or Jerry Was a Race Car Driver by Primus? They just fit in so well with this game. Most of the artists aren't that well known, but that's just to keep Pro Skater within the cool underground, rebellious music punks listen to. They're fast, adrenaline-pumping songs that will really put the player in the mood to skate. There's only one song that doesn't play during gameplay, and that's the main menu theme, which is more akin to hip-hop music rather than the punkiness of the other songs. While it is a short song that moves after about 15 seconds, it is rather catchy and a good menu song. Well, enough of the soundtrack, let's get on to the sound effects. The sound effects are quite good. They're very crisp and appropriate for the action being performed. And the special sound effect. Man, that is just so iconic and rewarding. Otherwise, I don't have much to say about the sound department of the first Pro Skater. Pro Skater 1 has a few extras. There's two secret characters, Officer Dick and Private Carrera. Officer Dick's unlocked after 100%ing a single skater's campaign. Private Carrera can only be accessed by inputting a certain cheat code, and she replaces Officer Dick. Each character has their own unique decks and special moves. Speaking of cheat codes, there's some fun features the player can use, such as Big Head Mode and Slow Motion. Additionally, there's two codes that unlock all levels, and unlock everything for those that don't want to deal with going through every character's career. Now, onto the version differences. The PS1 is the classic way to play this game. After all, Neversoft made this game specifically for the console in mind, and commissioned other companies to port the game to other systems. Edge of Reality made the Nintendo 64 port, and while it looks better than the PS1 and loads faster, It's missing a few songs, the skating FMVs, and the blood that comes from bailing. The screens that play the skate videos and the levels were replaced with still images too. The songs were also butchered to hell. First of all, they sound super crunchy and low quality. Secondly, they're pretty much just loops of the song's first verse and the chorus. They don't end properly. And finally, they were censored to maintain an E rating. Police Truck by the Dead Kennedys is completely instrumental due to this. While still on censorship, some Gap names were changed due to being too inappropriate, and the names for Private Carrera skateboards were changed because the original names contained sexual innuendos. Speaking of girls, there's this photo of this woman that shows up after inputting a certain cheat code. Nobody really knows who this is, or why it's here. Anyways, the Dreamcast is the best port. All the songs and FMVs are included, the loading screens are quite short, and the graphics are better than the PS1 and N64. The VMU of the Dreamcast will also display certain things, and praise the player if they hit a sick combo. There's also track symbols the player can find throughout the maps. Yes, the track behind some of the Call of Duties ported this game. One more thing, the PAL versions of the PS1 version have 3 songs from European bands, but they replaced the songs Screamer, Eurobarge, and Vilified. These songs sway more towards rap and hip hop, and although only one song has actual rapping, the other 2 are instrumental. But they do fit quite well within the game. Anyways, let's move on to the issues now. Pro Skater 1 has some jank to it that's hard to look past. Anybody that's played the Tony Hawk games knows how hard it is to go back to the first game and try to play it. Turning can feel like a chore sometimes, and it doesn't help the player can't move the camera without physically moving, so it can be hard to see where you're going. Hitting wall rides could be awkward, and there's not even a balance bar when grinding. Not to mention, many things like not being able to see the goals without ending a run, or how the songs are given a track number rather than having their name displayed. My second issue is, I wish the Pro Score challenges were replaced with something else. I get that getting a high score shows that the player understands the game and knows their way around the skating system, but I think the first high score challenge is enough. And not to mention, there's 3 levels where the player has to do nothing but get high scores. If this challenge was replaced with something like perform a certain trick over a certain gap, like later games did, I think it would add some flair that really could have boosted the uniqueness and fun of the career mode. Otherwise, I don't have any issues with Pro Skater 1. While the first Pro Skater may be hard to get back into due to some clunky things and missing features that are so prominent in future games, it is still a fun game today. It's not perfect, but the campaign is fun, there's so much charm to the graphics, and the soundtrack is so memorable. Let's cut out everything Pro Skater 1 has to offer. A campaign mode with 5 goal levels and 3 competition levels, fun maps with their own uniqueness to roam around in, songs that fit with the whole skater thing and are just good in general, a couple unlockables that make it worth going through the story mode, cheats that are fun to mess around with, and a free skate mode that allows for the player to kick back and enjoy the maps. Neversoft would receive massive praise for this entry, and would continue to make Tony Hawks until the series became real unoriginal and bland. But hey, at least some of them are quite fun, and make for some great memories. Not to mention, without the first Pro Skater, none of its amazing sequels would have been possible. And until next time, find the hidden tape.